Hello, Vivian. Mathieu Bergeron here, proud TELUS team member and University of Victoria's MBA student. As part of our course MBA 546 Innovation and Design Thinking, I want to present you with my individual applied project, on which I will focus on new business products and services introduction at TELUS. I will try to compare how we innovate at TELUS with the frameworks we learned in MBA 546. Before we get started, let's look at the Applied's project agenda. First, we'll look at how TELUS introduces business product and services currently. I'll give a general background, as well as my views on our performance. Then we'll compare TELUS with Kumar's 7 modes. We'll derive what TELUS does well, and what are the areas of potential improvement. Finally, we'll conclude with some recommendation and open-ended statements. So let's get started. Okay, so let's consider business products and services introduction at TELUS for a reflection of innovation. First of all, taking into consideration our org structure, service introduction at TELUS is really centered around marketing and most specifically product development. What makes it challenging is you've got multiple marketing teams trying to influence how we develop products and services. Second, you've got sales scattered all across the country that have the real relationship with customers, but that really are no part in the product introduction or the product development, right? What products developers do is that they look at numbers on a spreadsheet, basically, and decide where we need to get better from a service perspective. Then they go to our technology and strategy department, what I call the nerd department with a lot of affection. And instead of letting them propose ways to innovate, they go to them with very specific requests. We need to decrease price on that specific product line. We need a device that does this and that, right? So they circumvent their ability to innovate from a technological perspective. Add to that it's a very straightforward process driven based on an annual roadshow and template approach where if you miss your window for an innovation possibility, you need to come back the year after to request capital. And finally and thirdly, it's really resourced and market focused, meaning you need to have short-term focused capital request and resource request with a high return on investment because long-term returns are not really acceptable from a publicly traded company standpoint. So really, it gives us a really complex external and internal environment, a rigid and linear process, not iterative, and a process that's really market and resource focused, not necessarily all the best way to innovate from a design perspective at least. Maybe from a business perspective that's suitable, but from a design perspective, maybe not the best. So if we look at our innovation scorecard, TELUS is pretty good at innovating from a traditional perspective, anything from internet services to phone services or networking services for business. From a behavioral component at the right of your screen, we're also pretty good. We've introduced social purpose as a way to innovate our business presence. However, and I've put some of our competition in the middle, from a third wave, or what we called in the business over-the-top services perspective, we're not so good. So we've tried to launch and introduce products and services that compete with Skype, that compete with Dropbox, that compete with the Microsoft Cloud and Amazon Web Services. But however, we haven't been real successful in what we have as our third wave services, our over-the-top services. In the consumer world, even though we're focusing on business for this specific presentation or projects, in the consumer services, we haven't come close to anything like Netflix or Amazon Prime, for instance. So we're really lagging from that third wave perspective, which leads us to conclude that while we're innovative on the behavioral component of our business, as well as on our traditional services, our scorecard is not so good on the third wave and over the top services, where, from a business standpoint, the real growth really is. So let's try to see why that is by comparing TELUS business services introduction with Kumar's modes for design. So let's start with the first mode of Kumar's 101 design method, Sense Intent. So Sense Intent is about the changing conditions in the market, foreseeing trends, reframing problems, and basically forming an intent over what you want to innovate towards. And that TELUS business services introduction, I feel we're pretty good with Sense Intent. We have extensive competitive landscape reviews. We follow market trends, and we use a lot of the methods that are described in Kumar's first mode, right? We use trend experts interviews. We have keyword bibliometrics from internet, seeing what is the most searched stuff concerning telecommunications. We have innovation landscape. We have initial opportunity mapping, so on and so forth. Where we fail a little bit is that I don't think we renew our intents enough. Meaning we evolve it from year to year based on the process the linear process that I've described. But we really never start with a clean sheet. So what the positive aspects of this is that we're pretty much better than the competition. So from a telco's innovation perspective, we perform better uh, at sensing intent, at least. But we fail at reframing our perspective. We only look at it from a telco perspective rather than looking at it from an overall innovative company or technological company perspective. So, mode two, no context. Kumar describes it as understanding your history and your frontiers, perceiving yourself within the systems, and including yourself in that system, understanding the stakeholders in which you evolve in. From a TELUS business service introduction, I think we use a lot of tools and method. We have research plans, publication research. We're really thorough on financial profiles, as I've discussed. We have a competitors complementors map. We do SWOT analysis, subject matters interviews, and even interest groups discussion. Um, However, I feel we don't reflect on our history enough, what we've done as mistakes that could help us, um, and what telco's history keeps us from innovating. And I think our siloed approach uh, keeps us from looking at context from a global perspective. So the technology and strategy group will look at devices and innovation we can use to build our new services, but they won't use at the how much does it cost and what's the market potential, while marketing might focus on that without having the user in mind, so on and so forth. So I think our context is a little too short-sighted. One of the positive sides, though, is we're very well aware of the technological context we evolve in, since we, as I mentioned, have we use a lot of tools for that respect. As for mode three, no people. Kumar describes this as putting the user at the center of innovation, observing the user before you start designing new products and services. Um, Immersion is a really important concept of this mode. User empathy. I can say from a TELUS business and services introduction, we're not very good at knowing the people we sell our business and services to. Maybe the fact that those are being sold to companies instead of consumer makes us a little less likely to use some of the tools that are described in Kumar's book. We do have a lot of surveys at TELUS, but they're mostly post-innovation focused. So we like to know if the customer is likely to recommend us, if the customer are happy, but we rarely include them in the innovation conversation. We'd rather do tailor-made solutions after the fact. So that leads me to conclude that user is not an important um, stakeholder in the design process from a TELUS Business Services introduction. But the positive side is we have all the tools in place to know people better. We could use all the technological tool and all the survey tools, the field activities, the remote research capabilities that we do have could be put in place to help us innovate in the business segments better. So for mode four, framing insights, how do we explore the synergy opportunity by all the insights we've gathered in different modes? How do we have overviews that are going to lead us to solutions for our innovation requests? How do we develop guiding principle? I think we do that very, very well in our new business services introduction. I might have described why sometimes some of our insights are a little too short-sighted, but the insights gathering, at least within each of the silos in which we evolve, and I'll get to that later, are very good. If I had to find some negative points on how we put all the insights together from the previous modes, um, it would be that it's a very linear process. It's centralized around marketing, and sometimes it's done too quickly. So they communicate those insights that are going to lead down to the next modes rapidly, and we don't take time to really think them through and revisit them. So it can lead to miscommunications. Um, but we still have very good bright spots to leverage as far as framing insights. So the tools we use most effectively are Venn diagrams, user group definitions. We've used that, summary framework, and design principle generation, as well as analysis workshop, are used currently at TELUS. That will lead to as they will be derived for inputs for the next modes. So again, very performing on mode four from a TELUS business service introduction. So mode five, exploring concept. This is where we have great challenges at TELUS. We don't challenge our assumptions or imagine the future or seek to add value as design describes this mode of design methods. Really, once we've gathered insights on the previous modes, we do some ideation and prototype, but really what doesn't fit into a 3-year cycle of return, and anything that has concern about cannibalizing other products and services is just basically cut short of the concept we want to consider as part of the solution. And really, we really move from insights to solutions. We don't have concepts. So while we have great innovative minds at TELUS, that come up with great concept, our short-term focus really cuts shorts on exploration. Cut shorts on exploration, but then we spend a great deal of time on the often unique solution we gather from the insight. And fortunately, we're very good at framing solution, right? So where we develop a holistic systems view of the solutions that we've put together, where we evaluate the pros and cons, we arrange hierarchies of how we want to go into market and develop those new business services and products. So TELUS is very, very good at a phased approach, at a hierarchical approach of new service or new business service introduction. We are great at analyzing the implication of our solution within all the department, operational, marketing, sales. We've developed a great way to analyze the implications, and we're also exceptional at developing roadmaps. So this is one thing we do very well. We're very efficient at framing solution. However, we sometimes fall victim to analysis paralysis because everybody will put brakes on something that is too innovative because it might be too challenging for them to integrate. So being careful of that. So finally, mode 7, realize offering. Kumar describes this mode as where we prototype and make ideas and concepts tangible, and how we win by implementing in reality. So I think Dallas is very good. Dallas is very good at realizing offering and introducing new business and business services into market. Um, I think we have great strategy roadmaps. We make great workshops. We pilot in multiple environment products and services. Um, where we're a little, less good, I would say, is at implementation, and we sometimes lack the courage to revisit our decision to go ahead with a new offering in the business market just because we've committed to it. So we might delay and extend some of the introductions, but other than that, I'd say we're very good at making things happen. Um, so if we summarize what we've just compared as far as our propensity at innovation versus the 7 modes in Kumar's method, um, well, we've seen that we're good in 5 out of the 7 modes, but that we really don't excel at knowing the people or exploring concepts. I think this is due to two main um, reasons. The same reasons why we fail at reframing, why we have no holistic views, why user is not at the center of our innovation for introduction of new business products and services, is because we innovate in silos. We've seen that there are multiple organization or business units that are involved in the new products introduction. And each of these business units basically do their own thing, keeping a holistic view from trickling down and improving our innovation capacities. Second, um, from the fact that we sometimes fall victim to analysis paralysis, and that we also have difficulty implementing and following through on our implementation plans, as we've seen in mode 7. I think while we're this is the reason for that, is that while we're innovative at heart, uh, we're really having a hard time breaking free of our old telephone company legacy and its monopolistic views on market, um, and innovation. Basically, um, telephone company used to say, well, here's a phone line, this is the features you have, and this is the product you need to buy. Anyway, you can't buy anything else. Well, market has evolved, and now consumer and business consumers have a whole lot of new ideas in the market, and a whole lot of new companies that are challenging these views, and we need to break free from that legacy if we want to compete. And as I mentioned in the introduction for this presentation, compete with the likes of over-the-top providers such as Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and so on. So I believe that our culture needs to evolve for us to get better. Um, and it needs to evolve to, there is no multiple TELUS within TELUS. There is one innovative TELUS for business, at least. And it needs to evolve toward that if we want to become more successful at the introduction of our business services, and improving the communications between all the business units that are involved at the creation of new products and services for our business customers. So, in conclusion, I believe that if we want to get better from a new business and services introduction perspective, and from an overall innovative perspective, we need to, first of all, put the user at the center of our innovation strategy, and break down the silos walls between marketing, sales, and technology and strategy departments. To do that, I propose the creation of a chief innovator officer to help resolve those challenges, and make sure we start framing ourselves as a technological company, not as a telecommunication company. to make sure that we have holistic views of our context within the global environment rather than having a short sighted view of us as a telco competing against telcos. I want us to be able, with an innovator, chief innovator, I want us to be able to focus on some long term plays rather than looking at innovation on a 3 year plan. And this will also help us go relieve some of the challenges from an implementation perspective, breaking down some of the collaboration walls we need to break down by having someone in the executive leadership team oversee the innovation process. Now, of course, a chief innovator officer would be also in charge of transforming our culture in order to improve our innovative mindset and make sure that we implement it as thoroughly as we have implemented in the last decade our customer first strategy. And that creation of a chief innovator officer, as well as the actions I've just described, will make sure we remain relevant in a market that sees telecommunications as more and more a commodity. We need to make sure that we bank and grow on our what I described in our in the beginning of the presentation on the over the top services and the third wave services, and become just as innovative as the Googles, the Amazon, the Microsoft, and so on. So thank you, Vivian. This was a really enjoyable course, especially a last semester around transformation, performance, and innovation. Very well put together, as these three courses related very much together. So thank you, and I'm looking forward to meeting you in Victoria.